This is the Kaizen Way, the show dedicated entirely to continuous improvement. Join us every Thursday for new episodes on popular platforms like Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Google Podcasts. This show is proudly sponsored by Modern Kaizen LLC, your one-stop shop for robust training solutions for soft and even most specialized of skills. Find them on the web at modernkaizen.com and all major social media platforms. We thank you for joining us. Now, without further ado, here's your host, Mike Monroe.
So, good morning. It is our first ever podcast. This is the Kaizen Way. I'm your host, Mike Monroe, currently joined by Tamara Mackroy. Good morning to you. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing good. I'm so stoked to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
We're super excited to have you too. And, here at the Kaizen Way, it's all things continuous improvement. The goal here is to just get to know each other, talk a little bit more about continuous improvement, and then specifically lean in on your perspective. So if you could, Tam, go ahead and introduce yourself. Give me a little bit about what your role is in your business, and then give me something unique about you that really sets you apart.
Gotcha. Well, everyone, once more, my name is Tamara. Everyone calls me Tam, so I always tell people, feel free to do the same. And so I'm the Chief Program Project Manager for Management Consultative Favor. We are a project management consulting firm. I work with different human service providers throughout the country, just pretty much helping them build sustainable community-based programs or even scale what they have in place. I also have a nonprofit. Our goal is to provide counseling services to women who are new moms or soon to be moms, and they may be going through some anxiety or depression. And then I also just started a reentry agency whose mission is to help those coming from jails and or prisons pretty much get a jump start on reentering society. A lot of times too often these individuals don't even know how to engage with family members, right? So we want to help them with some life skills and just kind of give them that jump start once more. And I'm a geek. So I'm certified Lean Six Sigma. I am so into quality improvement, continuous improvements, and making certain that we're putting efficient and effective measures into place to get her done.
And I'm going to go rogue here a little bit because I thought it was really interesting that you brought up the newer mission and nonprofit where you're working with transition. So talk a little bit more about that program. How long has it been in inception, and are you utilizing Lean Six Sigma principles in helping folks reintegrate?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I've been in the Lean Six Sigma industry and world, we'll say, for close to a decade. And, Lean and Six Sigma started in the manufacturing realm, right? And then got into aerospace and now healthcare and so forth. I'm human services. My graduate degree is human services. And so I've been one of those individuals, in a sense, like a pioneer, working to push these methodologies into these everyday services that are being provided to folks on the ground floor. And that's what has made me successful in my career and in my business. And so working with these licensed clinical social workers, psychologists, case management organizations, and so forth, just seeing the need for getting her done, right? And removing different, we call it muda, right?
Mhm.
Waste, right?
Right.
Removing those tactics from everyday best business practices. And so as I was working with these individuals and still seeing that there was a greater need in these other different areas where my nonprofit and reentry agency is, right? I went ahead and said, I'll do it, and so as before, where I'm helping to build these programs and providing oversight, now I'm there providing direct care services. And it's been a blast helping to work with different partners and community leaders and so forth, and building the infrastructure once more that can provide these ground floor services to folks that are truly in dire needs.
It's a beautiful thing. And I especially think, and the reason why I wanted to touch on that is that I think it's really important that we look at Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement on a daily basis, and not just in the manufacturing space. because I feel like, that's when people hear Lean Six Sigma, they think, manufacturing and,
Hmm.
the Toyota way and, that very, myopic focus there. But I completely agree. And I really appreciate that you're applying those principles because, I mean, even in my day to day is like, my morning routine, I'm looking at how to standardize work, and limit steps between, the room and, going around just because we only get so much life and, it's really important to eliminate muda and, really maximize the time that we get. I want to jump in, really into the meat of this interview here. And I'm not sure if you know, but a big part of what we do at Modern Kaizen is really kind of draw the bridge between the importance of mindset and these lean principles, because we believe that you can't truly implement organizational change unless you also you know do a checkup from the neck up and really think about your mindset. So talk to me about how you define mindset and how it's related to continuous improvement.
Absolutely. And so for the most part, it's showing, right? People have to see it to believe it. And, when you're working with different levels of leadership and executive leadership and so forth, or even with your team, your peers, and you have to whiteboard that thing out and give folks the power to go ahead and let's implement it. Let's track it. Let's monitor it. Let's do eval, make certain it's still working the way we need it to do. And then getting individuals, these stakeholders, right? Get their buy-in and make certain that they're believing it too. And regrettably, sometimes you have to let the ship get a hole in it and then, present, hey, I got a solution here. And that goes back to that buy-in because what I've learned being, I'm fairly not old, but I'm young, right? And so when you're working
Experience.
within, yeah, that part, you work with folks, and this is the way we've always done it, and they're really reluctant, and so you have to present the metrics and the business case for why it needs to go in a different route, and I've been around long enough to know of a lot of different big wigs and they didn't want to shift or move. And it's kind of like one of those things like Blockbuster.
Hmm.
Right? You see how that worked out for them, right?
Hmm.
And so forth. And so it's really a conversation that you have to have. But I find that it's more easily ingested with data showing them.
Well said. Well said. A lot of times there really is this resistance to change, and I mean Kaizen in itself is change good, right? It's a good thing to change, and that's ultimately what we're looking for here. So jumping into a parallel here, but you know you're inherently going to meet those people that are just naturally resistant to things, right? Um, how do you motivate that team to embrace the culture of continuous improvement? Other than just setting the example, is there anything else that you do that you feel like is kind of a secret sauce to getting that buy-in?
I've been fortunate. I have very good, strong interpersonal skills, right?
Mm,
And so you learn to tuck and roll with those tight necks. You know what I mean? And just continue to push forward. With once more, at the end of the day, we're bind to delivering what we've been contracted to do, what we've been hired
mm,
to do, whatever have you, whichever capacity you're there in the organization. And having kind of tough conversations, you know what I mean? Those things that kind of make you go, you kind of
mm-hmm.
go, right? And being okay to do so. Even with clients, I've learned, making certain that you have those conversations, being transparent. And letting them know, hey, we have some hurdles. This is a strategy. It's one of those things. Once more, you don't never present a problem without a solution. This is the
Mm-hmm.
strategy, that we're working to mitigate it, right? And hold on, it's going to be bumpy for a little while, kind of thing, right? And it's there's no clear cut way. There's sometimes so many different moving variables that you just get in there with rollerblades and you keep pushing through the fire. But having those conversations and letting folks know this, despite what level they're on, that, hey, this is where we're at, this is where we're going, buckle up and we're going to work to get her done.
I love it. It does sound to be like a lot of your background and some of the things that you do in the nonprofit space, and really have armed you with the tools to have these difficult conversations, right? And having the courage to have those conversations. But it really is. I 1,000% agree with you. I mean, there really isn't one solution to fix everything, other than coming from a place of authenticity and coming from a place of transparency, because
Yeah.
I mean, people can really sniff that out. And, if they truly believe that you truly believe, that a lot of times that becomes a little contagious. And again,
Hmm.
with enough time too, you can really start to see it become a part of the norm again. So that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And sometimes your clients, to add on to that, they'll appreciate you, being honest with them. I remember once I had this client and BD, business development, sold them a dream.
Mm.
We didn't have the systems, the functionality, the capabilities, we didn't have the provider network. And, I had to tell that client, like, listen, but we're hang in there. And even after I left the organization, that client sought me out on LinkedIn and was giving me praise and just telling me how appreciative they were for what I had done for their program, despite all in the beginning. And it was one of those kind of things where you're like, yes, right? Can I get into heaven with that one, God? Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. You seem to have a lot of great experience in continuous improvement. And so, and this is actually I think my favorite question on here, because I can think of a bunch of different things. But what is the most outrageous way that you've implemented a continuous improvement initiative?
Outrageous. There's so many scenarios. Oh, I remember one time my team was like, Tam, we want to go all paperless. And I was like, yeah, you know what I mean? Ink, toner, you're looking at your budget and stuff. And so we worked with our business analyst folks, got some, things into place with SharePoint or whatever have you. And I was looking at the reports and I saw that it was taking longer for my RN to complete her line of work, right, than it was for another lower level, my customer service representatives who were working and interfacing with the ground floor folks. They were just breezing through. But, my RN, I pay her like what it costs 3 of those. You know what I mean? Like she's
Yeah.
expensive, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and so it was like, retreat, let's pause, you know what I mean? And let's put something else on the whiteboard where we can kind of go around the mulberry bush and make certain that this is balancing out. And it's one of those things, you know what I mean? And program project management, you're looking at all areas of your portfolio. You're not just looking at the deliverables on, it going out the door, but you're looking at your financials. You're looking at, your systems and so forth and so on, making certain that all the king's horses and all the king's men are doing what they're supposed to do. Right. And so it was a little crazy because we, just when we whiteboarded this thing and we were like, okay, let's poke holes, let's try to break it. This looks very sound, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then to see that in my data reports and it was like, so, that was crazy because it really, we had to halt on so many different levels as we were reworking this. I mean, granted, I had 22 contracts and we only did this with 5. So we kind of beta ran it, but still in all, it caused an impact to the turnaround times for those 5 contracts. And so it was one of those kind of things like, yeah, maybe just one contract for a segregated population kind of thing. Yeah. Lesson learned there.
Did you did you end up figuring out what the root cause was for why she was taking so much longer?
Yes, she had more clicks to do. When you're looking at your funnel, she had to go here. If it was, they were able to pass. Our niche was medical surveillance and and pre-appointment psych evals and so forth. So the criteria for a soldier to be deployed into Afghanistan was different for them to get into Saudi Arabia. And so, we had to pass or not pass, or what happened if they didn't pass this section of that. And this, so it was just so many different moving pieces in the system that it was like a maze in a sense for her, whereas it was a straight shot for those other teammates in which they were able, because they're just decimating information and shooting it over. So it was, that's how that worked out.
Gotcha. She's having to make kind of the higher level, and like, okay, this goes here and this, and interesting. Did you end up actually fixing it? What was the solution?
Funny stuff. So we actually turned some of her work back into paper. It was just like one of those kind of things. If you needed to pass a chart on to a doctor for their final sign off, let's do what that means, as opposed, because it was just too much in a bottleneck. And it worked better. So we kept the CSRs with their maneuvers and so forth, because it kind of pushed it on, but we put more paper back into the nurse's work life.
And I mean, that's one of the things that's, I think, is important too, is that, change isn't just a one change and then that's going to be the change that happens, for the rest of it, right? These are social experiments that essentially we're conducting. I mean, that at the granular level, that's essentially what it is. And, there's a potential for more change after the initial change. So I think it's really important to be adaptive, and in continuously looking at the ways to keep that process working at its fullest. And it's okay to look at it again and maybe do a blend or a hybrid, because as long as the ultimate goal and the metrics were achieved and a new efficiency was really set as the standard, then you've done a good job. So that's a great story there. I love it. As we're talking about a lot of these great things about making that change and implementing these great initiatives. um, I know a lot of times sustainability is something that is really rattling around a lot of people's heads. In fact, it's been multiple times for multiple organizations that in our initial discovery session, the leadership is asking, how do we know this isn't just the next flavor of the month, right? How do we know that these results are going to be sustainable, right? And I think that's a big kind of concept a lot of times with anything that's social improvement or like process improvement or even mindset, leadership, all that stuff, right? There's always this initial resistance too. So how can organizations ensure that changes and these positive changes are sustainable and provide an ongoing value?
I love it. I love this question. My head was like pew 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 pew. And so with the clients that I work with, a lot of the providers, when my consulting firm started out, it started in working with billing and insurance companies and so forth, helping these mental health providers, one, get on the directories for these large insurance companies, get clients, provide the counseling services, whatever have you. And just looking at the reimbursement rates and appeals and turnaround times, it was like, okay, let me find a solution. And I'm working with so many different, individuals. And it was like, let's look into more grant funding. You know what I mean? These RFPs are coming out and so forth and so on. And I had some clients that was like, and some was like, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's weed through some of the lesser grossing insurance companies and move towards, different methodologies there and so forth. And, that there we're talking about sustainability, because at the end of the day, the mission of the organization is to, provide life-changing services to these individuals. And, but they're looking at their bottom line. I have, brick and mortar, even though COVID turned a lot of practices into, that remote virtual type of thing and so forth and so on. I have, counselors to pay, and so forth and whatever have you. And with one of my clients, we knew that the Children's Services Council was coming out with this RFP to make certain that they were able to provide gap services in between the school year and the summer. And so we wrote this RFP, budgeted it out, itemized it, and did some partnerships. We were able to get with the city of Tallahassee Parks and Recreation Center. And so the whole moral of the story is that, we were able to do a twofold. We were able to assist students, young adults, right, children, with getting, counseling services throughout the year, because a lot of these children, underprivileged, underserved, these type of populations, they were only able to obtain counseling while in school because of the partnerships there. And so, life still goes on, and these children still go through trauma, right? Traumatic homes that they go home to and so forth. And so that piece was there. And then also her practice was able to sustain throughout the summer as well, and going into, the fall. And they did such a great work there, working with the Parks and Recreation Center and underneath the Children's Services Council, that they invited them back. And so now they're set and to be on course for coming back for the spring when additional funding is going to drop. And it's those type of things when we're talking about sustainability and scalability. And another thing that a lot of clients are like that I do is that I actually do internal audits. You know what I mean? Let's look at, your finances. Let's look at your files for your clients that you're seeing. Let's make certain that we're crossing T's and dotting I's, especially on downtime where you can do some housekeeping. And so doing that monitoring and an assessment of where they're at with quality and risk management aspects of operations is help with them being able to move forward, because one, they're compliant and they're able to reach more opportunities for funding. So it's a lot of different moving pieces, but once you put it all together, you have something cohesive that's meeting its mission and things aren't falling in between the cracks.
Absolutely. And I actually, one of the biggest things that you said there that I think is crazy important was that you used scalability and sustainability in the same sentence, and I think that's a really important concept there, because a lot of times, and I feel like that's where a lot of folks fall short, is the scalability on there. But if it scales well, it'll likely be sustainable as well, which is I'm really glad that you touched on that. So one of the biggest takeaways from this, Tam, is that a lot of folks that I work with, they're so professional and business based, in the sense that they're looking at all of these things specifically in the manufacturing or the business process, right? But you have a really great community element to it as well, where you apply this continuous improvement to the communities that you live in, which I think is really
Absolutely.
amazing.
And that's where my heart has been. It's like, why not take these process driven tactics and measurements of, looking at the success of something and apply it into the human services realm. You know what I mean? Where, there's so many breakdowns of social services and homelessness and this. We need just as stringent type of processes in this realm, because those people are going to work in your manufactories, right? They're going to fly, in the aerospace dynamics and so forth. And if they're mental, you know what I mean? Or even if their children are off kilter, or even if their dog, right? Whatever have you, if that realm, if they're dealing with some kind of substance use issues, whatever have you, if that's off kilter, it's going to spew into the other industries. You know what I mean? You're going to wonder why that janitor didn't clean that bathroom just as good. It's like, it's all connected.
Well said. Well said. Well said. I've been seeing this a lot, especially lately, is that these methodologies and these principles are starting to bleed out into other industries because they're so effective. I mean, even in the IT space, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of these concepts, start to get bridge into IT. On that note, we're coming to the end of the show here. I really want to thank you so much, Tam, for joining us and sharing your perspective with us. I think it was really great to be able to hear from you, and again, really open the mind to the way that we can, in the other places in our lives, that we can apply these principles and continuously improve on a daily basis, right? So at this point of the show, I always give our folks an opportunity to do a promotion. So go ahead and anything that you'd like to promote.
Absolutely. With Management and Consultative Favor, it is my project management consulting firm. We're actually having a promotion right now for human service providers where we are doing quality and risk management assessments. And you can get this done for about 20% off. And so if you're able to book a consult within the next 30 days, we'll honor that. But you do need to let us know that you saw us here on Kaizen Way, and we'll go ahead and get that going for you.
That's awesome. I cannot thank you enough for sharing with us your perspective, your experience, your great stories, and just your overwhelmingly wonderful personality. It was truly an honor to have to share this morning with you.
Thank you.
So with that, I want to thank you so much once again. I want to thank everyone who's listening, and I will see you all next time.